Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome to Getting Stoked. I'm your host, Matthew Slusser. You know who it is. You clicked on the fucking thing. So, quick story before I get to the introduction on the guest. So this is kind of interesting. On my way over here, I realized that I forgot my laptop. Drove all the way back to the house. So it got changed and everything. Got everything taken care of. Left. Came back, and then when I was almost here, I realized that I still didn't get my laptop. I just changed clothes. So then I had to turn around and drive all the way back after getting out of work late anyway. And then bustle on over here, and here we are. And so yeah, that happened today. I need to get my shit together. But we do have. So this is how I found out about the guest that we have today. I was perusing through Bandcamp. I just every once in a while I'll go on Bandcamp if I feel like I haven't heard a local release in a while, and I'll just type in the tag Phoenix and just kind of see what pops up. And I just kind of perused it, went through it a little bit, and I found a name that I didn't recognize, which is Neuron Spectre. And I clicked on it, and immediately the album artwork grabbed me. And I listened to it, and I was like, dude, I'm fucking into this as hell because I'm really into, I've talked about it on the show a little bit, I'm really into retro wave and synthwave and stuff like that. I think that stuff is super cool. So when I found this guy, I was really, really happy. And I talked to some other people about him as well because I didn't know about it. And I talked to some friends about it today. And I was like, hey, do you know Neuron Spectre? And one of my buddies works at Club Red, and he was like, oh, yeah, that dude's really fucking nice. So welcome to the show.
Nice. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, I was one of my buddies does sound at Club Red, and he said that he saw you there because you play with Ghost, is it?
Ghost, yeah.
Is that how you say it, Ghost?
Yeah, I've opened for him 3 times now.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's what he told me. He's like, yeah, he always opens for him whenever he's here. How did that relationship kind of get started?
Well, I mean, it just started from the promoter, 13th floor. It's funny because my very first live show was opening for him.
Really?
Yeah, that was April of last year.
Okay.
Very first live show. I had released my first EP in July of 2016, and 2017 I just decided, I was like, you know what, I want to start playing live, whatever.
Totally.
And I saw that he was coming, so just like on a whim, I didn't really think that it was going to happen. I contacted the club about it, and they got me in touch with the promoter, and she put me on there. I mean, I played first in front of the 15 people I had sold tickets to, and probably about a handful of others, but you know, it seemed to just kind of stick. And
his new album is phenomenal.
Yeah. Oh yeah, yeah,
it's fucking good.
Yeah, it's fantastic. There's been a lot of like, I don't know, like the synthwave community kind of, some of them turn their nose up at it just because it's a little
it's different,
heavier, and a little
but like so much of that synthwave shit's exactly the same.
Oh yeah.
So like I don't understand how a genre who like they have standout artists, and I'm a huge fan of that stuff. Mm-hmm. And like it's weird to me that they like, how dare you not do shit the same way we've been doing it for 40 years.
Yeah, I think it just kind of there's a faction of that, you know, fandom that they just kind of get stuck in that 80s sound, and they want it to sound like the 80s. Mm-hmm. They want it to be as retro as possible, and production values and songwriting wise. So
who are some that you really like a lot?
Ghost is a big one. Has always been a big one. He was kind of like the main influence for me, even like delving into this. Mm-hmm. But you know, of course, I kind of gravitate towards a lot of the darker artists like him, Perturbator, Carpenter Brute.
Fucking good. Carpenter Brute. Do you like Clusterbuster?
Yeah, Clusterbuster's got some pretty cool stuff too. Yeah, the horror,
all of that
theme stuff,
retro 80s records.
Yeah.
Thing that's on Bandcamp or whatever.
Yeah.
They got some great artists on there. Clusterbuster, he's great. Who's Clusterbuster is the same person as Midnight Driver.
Yeah.
Who owns that label?
Yeah, and he's got some interesting stuff. I like how he puts in some of like the guitar and everything in there, kind of the same way, you know, like Carpenter Brute does live, and
Shredder does
a few others. Yeah, Shredder. I've actually played with him a couple of times.
Really?
And yeah, he's a rad dude from France.
Is he rad? Is he cool? That's
awesome.
He's
a cool dude.
Where'd you play with him at? The Grid?
Yeah, I played with him at the Grid, but the first time I played with him was in California. Oh, actually, cool. Hollywood. Him and Facehugger, The Encounter.
Facehugger's sick.
Yeah.
I that's like my go-to music when I'm just kind of like, I don't know what to listen to, or I'm just chilling. Good, but there are definitely some that like, have really stood out to me recently. Like Mitch Murder really stands out to me. He does some cool shit.
Mitch Murder, yeah, that's like that's the stepping stone, I think, for a lot of people to get. That's like when I first started getting into the synth music, I've learned about it the same way I think a lot of people did from that movie Drive.
Oh, dude,
with Ryan
yeah.
Gosling, having Kavinsky on there in college.
That Kavinsky EP was so sick.
Yeah, I mean that was I think where a lot of people got it. But then when Kung Fury came out back in what was that 2015, Mitch Murder did most of the soundtrack for that.
Oh,
so
very cool.
Yeah, people kind of got on to the Mitch Murder train from there.
Yeah, see, I was always interested in that kind of music. Being a huge horror geek, it's impossible to not know that, and I recognize it. I mean, not even just from the obvious stuff like everything that John Carpenter has done, and especially fucking Halloween 2 and Halloween 3.
Yeah.
Like that's obvious, but then you go deeper into shit like Maniac and all those amazing 80s scores from back then, and so I was always kind of like dabbling with it, but same thing, Drive. When I saw Drive, I heard that soundtrack, and then that's when I discovered Kavinsky, and then from there I discovered Perturbator and Laserhawk and all these other crazy guys. I feel like Perturbator is more on the line of Ghost as far as like a little bit more out there.
Yeah, and his last EP too, I think, kind of got a little bit of dissent as well because he brought in like industrial influences and stuff like that. And
he's been kind of going that direction, I feel like, more and more with each release.
Yeah, and I think it's because and I actually got to open for him as well.
Oh, did you meet him?
Yeah,
he's French too, right?
It was very quick. Yeah. It was very quick, but yeah, he's French. He's a cool dude, but yeah, I think he, just reading things that he said and then seeing him live, just kind of hearing him try to kind of get away from those conventions, the typical 80s thing that so many artists are doing, because you can kind of get stuck in a rut and it just kind of sounds samey. And
do you know Analog Sun?
Analog Sun.
So he's local. His name's Eric Hirsch. He has a couple other bands as well, but Analog Sun is a project that's he makes all of his albums are soundtracks to movies that don't exist. It's kind of like his whole thing.
Sure. And
it's all like analog shit that he has. It sounds super good. And that brings me actually to a topic that I wanted to bring up. When I was talking to my buddy about you and your live show, he said that he really likes that you actually do everything on stage. You don't just kind of like hit play and bounce to your own shit.
Yeah, that was one thing that I wanted to make sure that when I started playing this is that I wasn't just one of the like house DJs or something like that, where I'm just getting up there with a computer hitting play and then, trying to feed off the audience or something like that. I play a lot of different instruments and, I didn't want this to be different from any other musical venture that I've done. So yeah, I have a keyboard up there with me so I can play. And every track I have, kind of one part that, I don't have in my live version. So I can play that live and play the song and, I'll add little things here and there. So it's not just like you're listening to the recording.
Totally.
So yeah. I always wanted to make sure that it wasn't just hitting play. And
yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, I saw the same thing when there was this guy, I think he still does stuff under different names, but when I saw him, he was under the name Early Tongue. Something DJ, what's the fuck is his name? DJ Love Lady or something like that.
I think I've heard it.
Yeah. It was like it's a witch house kind of deal, but he has like he had a guitar case just full of pedals, and just like the whole time manipulated that with like a crazy projector behind him, playing old creepy fucking like 40s footage and stuff like that.
Yeah, and that's cool too, and you see that a lot in like the witch house, the EBM, and even some of the industrial artists that are a little more electronic, which is cool, getting their sounds different ways like that.
Yeah, I don't like, that's the thing, is I don't really know, I guess, what's the norm, because I don't see a lot of that stuff live, and it's not something that I've like. When it comes to electronic music, I've always been very specific about, like, I like my like synthwave and retrowave shit, and I like some witch house and some weird kind of experimental stuff, but I've never been like some of the ambient shit too, like Tim Hecker and that kind of deal. Sure. Goldman, I think, is the other guy that I like, if I can remember his name correctly. But yeah, so I don't really know, I guess, what So that's a really common thing with those guys, is like projectors and theatrics and whatnot.
It really kind of depends on the artist.
Yeah.
I mean, some are just kind of the typical hit and play and feeding off the audience. Others really kind of go for more of a performance aspect of it.
Was there like a specific idea in mind when you wanted to start Neuron Spectre?
As far as it's concerned, like, I've played other types of music before, and anytime I approach a musical project, I always think of what I can bring to it myself that kind of makes it more me. So I'm not just rehashing what other people have done, because they've already done it and they probably are going to do it better than I do. So, the retro wave, synth wave kind of thing, the horror movie aspect of it reached out to me, obviously. And, I'm kind of a horror movie nerd. So, really always loved the scores of, like John Carpenter, but also digging deeper, the Fabio Frizzi, Walter Rosati.
Goblin.
Goblin. Yeah, Goblin was a big one for me. Even like Tangerine Dream, things like that.
Tangerine Dreams is shit.
Yeah.
Totally.
Yeah. So bringing that in, but also bringing in, some of my metal background as well, kind of bringing in some parts of that aggression and kind of the more musicality of it, as well as classical music, just in general. Because the very first instrument I learned was piano. I was classically trained on that.
Really?
So,
okay, cool.
So I want to bring in some of
musician.
that.
Yeah. When it comes to horror movies, do you have like a specific era that you really like?
Not really. No. I mean, I'm just kind of a horror movie nerd in general. Everything from classic silent movies all the way up till today. So
I think I'm pretty. It's pretty standard, but I think 70s and 80s are kind of my go-to. The sleazier, the better kind of shit.
I mean, obviously there's tons of great stuff there, but when I grew up, starting out watching horror movies, I started on, like the classics, like the Universal Monster movies and stuff like that, Hammer horror movies, things like that, stuff from like the 30s through the 50s, 60s.
That's so cool. I'm jealous.
But, yeah, like I of course, most of my favorite movies I'd say are probably from that era, 70s, 80s, like Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
Yeah.
Romero's zombie movies, things like that.
Oh yeah, dude. Yeah, fucking shit. The Stan Lee of horror movies. That guy.
Yeah.
Did you see that documentary that was out on Netflix about the Night of the Living Dead and him creating all that stuff?
No, I have not seen that.
Oh, it came out a few years ago. It's great. It talks all about like how everyone thought that it was a political statement about racism and stuff like that, and how he became kind of this unlikely cultural figure and stuff like that, and just the making of it and all that kind of stuff. Obviously, the copyright issues and stuff like that, and how he can't make a dime off it.
The fact that it's all what's that term?
It's public domain.
Yeah, public domain. So it's funny because on my very first EP, I was thinking of samples and stuff. I was like, I don't want to get in trouble, of course, so I put in a couple clips from Night of the Living Dead because I was like, it's public domain. I can do anything I want with it.
I know. It's fucking dummy. Like I think he patented, he copyrighted it under like Attack of the Flesh Eaters or something like that, and then just never fixed it.
Yep.
So like, whoops. Which is why, and I always I love telling people that too. Like whenever you're watching a movie, like that's almost always the movie that people are watching. Like people are going to a big multiplex in some kind of movie, and just for some reason the movie just so happens to be fucking Night of the Living Dead. And like Donnie Darko is a great example of that too.
Yeah.
That's another fucking great 80s soundtrack movie is Donnie Darko.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that has some cool stuff on there.
Tears for Fears is all over that, and even Duran Duran is all over that. I got really into that kind of stuff too. Human League. Like Human League was another one that I got into when I got into electronic music.
Yeah, Human League, I think that's kind of a big one for everybody when they're starting to get past like your standard Depeche Mode or things like that. Yeah, I think Human League's probably
definitely
the next step up.
So when it comes to like the album art, I really like the album art. Where does that come from? Especially just the last two.
It's funny, like the newest one, it's just, my mask, and I just kind of wanted to go for I was almost thinking like a novel, like a cover of a novel was kind of my inspiration for that. And using those 80s fonts, the black serif and the Benguiat font that they use in like Stranger Things and everything like that.
Yeah.
But
it kind of does look like an 80s trade paperback or
yeah,
something like that.
it's kind of what I was going for with that. The last one, the mirror, it's actually a picture that we got in the dining room. I actually got a mirror, bought a mirror at Goodwill, broke it, stood.
Oh, you got bad luck now.
Yeah. Well, and I kind of stood over it with my face. My girlfriend stood on a chair behind it. It was like a whole ordeal getting that shot, but turned out pretty cool. And I, kind of manipulated it some to make the cover for it. So
that's super cool. That's a really smart way of going about it. I wouldn't be able to tell that though. Like I wouldn't be able to tell if that was something that like you guys really like spent like this was like a thing.
Yeah,
it looks great, but I couldn't imagine you guys doing that in the house.
I can't even imagine what it would have looked like to somebody just kind of looking in on it, how ridiculous the whole thing was. But the shot turned out great. She took like, I don't know, 20 different pictures, angles and stuff, and that one I thought turned out the best. So
have you been following this Jared Threaten story?
Yes, I have. That is, yes.
Like I have other questions to get to, but I want to talk about it because this is the first podcast I've done since it all because it was just a weekend story. Like it just blew up over a weekend.
Yeah, that was outrageous.
Basically, for those who don't know, this dude, like, he did what a lot of people in your respective local scenes have tried to do, but did it successfully and failed at the same time, which is basically fooling everybody into thinking that he was a band and he was successful, and he wasn't, by buying likes and listens and all these bots and whatnot. And he even fooled was it like a production company who was touring?
He actually made his own production company.
That's right.
He made like his own fake label. He made his own management company. He even made a fake like press outfit, and like an online webzine. And yeah, it was.
Everybody's comparing it
outrageous.
to like Tommy Wiseau. Like everyone says it's like the Room of music.
Kind of.
Like his music videos.
But like everything was he just did everything under false pretenses.
Yeah.
It was outrageous.
And then he went on tour to Europe, and even though he sold a couple hundred tickets to each show, he miraculously played to empty rooms every single time. And now he's trying to spin it as if he's trolling. Which is
that's what I meant to do the whole time. No, come on now.
Kind of that's really the only way you can go. Like that's at that point, that's the smart way. It's just like, no. This is on purpose.
No, you just should have owned it and just been, I'm a jackass.
Oh, I know. And his brother threw him under the bus. Did you see that?
Yeah, I saw that too. And it's like, I would have too. Like, because he's in a pretty moderately successful black metal band. So
yeah,
I would do the same thing. Just kind of distance myself from that kind of.
He's like, not only because he could have been like, no, we haven't spoken since 2012, and I don't talk to my brother. Instead, he went the extra step and said, we haven't spoken since 2012. I promise you, this
is not a joke. Yeah. This is not performance art. He is just an idiot.
He's a fuck you while I'm at it.
Yeah.
Yeah, man. Well, I guess they were both in a black metal band together at some point beforehand.
Yeah, and I guess it was just a local band, and they had some local success, but his brother actually wanted to put in work and do it the right way, and he ended up, he's doing pretty well. But Jared, I don't know.
Do you fuck with black metal?
Oh yeah, I love black metal.
Dude, me too. Yeah. I'm falling into a crazy black metal hole this year.
Yeah, I've listened to black metal since high school, when like the Scandinavian stuff first started coming over in mid 90s, and I've kind of always off and on listened to it, but really recently I've been listening to it a lot more.
Yeah, one of my favorite metal albums of the year so far was Mutilation Rites. Their new album's fucking goddamn.
They go outside. Yeah, it's not just the typical black metal thing, which I like.
It's terrifying. I love the hell out of it. There's been some great, and it's weird that black metal seems to have a quality to it that allows it to blend genres a lot, which is kind of strange. Like it blends with hardcore a lot. It blends with all kinds of stuff.
It needed to though.
Yeah,
because early on it was pretty revelatory there in like the mid 90s and everything. It was huge. It was awesome. It was kind of the antithesis to, you know, the mainstream metal.
Yeah.
And, you know, bringing in like the folk music
Mm-hmm.
influences and things like that with some of the bands and keyboards and other bands. It was cool. But then, you know, 5-6 years down the road, most of the bands were doing that. It was just kind of sounding really samey, kind of the same with synthwave and everything like that. So
Yeah.
I think it needed to branch out into different things to.
Yeah, and there's some guys who are doing it like I always wonder that like what, because there's some bands who stick pretty close to the formula on any given genre, and even though they do stick true to that genre, for some reason their version is just better than others. Like
It's usually ends up being the artist that kind of started the thing, you know?
like Krallice is an example, I feel like, of that. Like Krallice, I feel like play it pretty close to the.
Yeah, but they're a little bit cleaner.
Yeah, I guess maybe that's what it is.
Yeah, I think that might be part of it, that their production values and everything are a little cleaner, so it's not just like, you know, a guy in his basement with, it's not just a bunch of reverb and a guy screaming in his basement or something.
Yeah,
but,
yeah. What is Burzum? Is that black metal?
Yeah, I mean, pretty much.
Kind of Mayhem,
Yeah.
same thing.
Oh yeah,
Yeah, that's what I thought. I knew it.
Mayhem's like one of the originators.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I've been getting super into that lately, and death metal too. Just like a lot of old school. Gatecreeper is fucking amazing.
Gatecreeper's cool. Yeah,
they're so good.
Yeah, I've seen them a couple of times.
They're great. Chase is a cool dude. But yeah, it's just crazy that like I didn't realize how much of it existed in our own little native land. Like, there's a lot more out here than I thought there was.
Yeah.
Because it's weird, because I played in a band for so long in kind of the indie rock circuit, and we don't know, as far as we're concerned, there is no metal bands in Phoenix, because it's very kind of like everyone has their tribes, and there is some crossing here and there, but for the most part, no one really knows what's outside of their little zone unless they're looking for it.
Yeah, I think that's pretty true. I've been playing music here, you know, really like real honest bands here since about 2002, 2003.
Okay.
So, yeah, I mean, there's not a whole lot of crossing those barriers. So, yeah, and it kind of tends to make crowds a little fickle. So,
Yeah, it can, for sure.
but
It's coming back in a big way, though. People are really supportive right now.
Oh, yeah.
We're in a really good moment.
things are, and I think part of it is the proliferation of social media, bands being able to get out there more than they could back in the day. It's a little bit easier to get your name out there and get recognized and get people to listen.
What kind of so when you were playing, that was when like the fuck was that band, Wizards of whatever, was doing stuff in the metal scene? Oh god damn it, Wizards of Time, is that what it was called?
Oh
like
yeah,
way back in the day.
Yeah, God, I can't remember their name. Yeah, they were part of it, but I was playing back then. I played in, it was like a kind of like a psychobilly band.
Okay.
But again, because I approach everything like, how can I put my personal stamp on this? You know, we kind of had some metal influences and stuff. So
Was Limit Club playing back then?
yeah, they had just started.
Oh really? Okay, cool.
And it's funny, I just we just went to a show and saw the Limit Club. They just released an album, and
They did. Yeah.
my old bassist and drummer from my first psychobilly band, they have a new band, and they actually opened for the Limit Club at that show.
Oh, that's cool.
And I haven't really talked to them too much for a few years, but you know, caught up with them again, and we were talking about that, like how it was funny how out of all the psychobilly-esque bands from that time, the Limit Club was the one who just kind of stuck through it all,
And toured the world and did all kinds of crazy
Yeah.
shit. I'm really good friends with their drummer, actually. They're a current drummer.
Yeah.
They've been through them, but that's really the only psychobilly band that I know of other than Creepsville 666.
Yeah, back in the early 2000s, there was a few. We had a few around here. My first band was the Rebel Angels, and then we had Curse of the Pink Hearse was here. The guy, I can't remember the lead singer's name, but there's a legendary psychobilly band called the Quakes. They were one of the first ones. The singer had moved out here, and he started playing out here as well, and we had a few others. But it was a pretty cool scene back in 2002, 2003. Were you ever in any bands around here that like kind of reached any like levels of
success and or anything like that? Anything that we would know about?
No, not really to the level that, this musical project has, but, within local scenes, Rebel Angels and then my band after that, Unmarked Grave, that one was more like psychobilly mixed with death metal.
Okay.
But we still got, we played shows down in Tucson, we played here, and at least locally we were decently known. But
did you expect that that your little synthwave project would become the thing that eclipses the rest of it?
No, not even a little bit. And I mean, it was funny because one of my old bandmates, we still talk all the time, and he was like, if you had talked to me 5 years ago and told me that you would be playing the type of music you are now, and I'd be playing some power violence shit, like I wouldn't have believed anything you were saying. And
Power Violence is the best fucking genre name ever.
Yeah, right. Yeah, and he's really into that. I mean, Power Violence, it's cool. It gets very repetitive for me. But
yeah, is Power Violence like, what is, I'm trying to even think of like,
it's
like Code Orange isn't Power Violence, is it?
No, it's more like Capitalist Casualties, but a little bit heavier.
Okay.
Yeah,
Slammy.
Yeah.
Right? Okay.
Yeah.
Got it. A lot of people just crowd killing at those shows
Yeah.
and shit. Yeah.
Yeah, it's hardcore to the hardest.
To the hardest. Yeah.
Yeah.
Got it. Would you ever like consider doing some kind of like soundtrack work or anything like that?
Oh, I'd love to.
Yeah.
I'd absolutely love to. Yeah. I just haven't found any opportunities for that as of yet. But yeah, I'd love to do some soundtrack type stuff.
That'd be sick as fuck. That'd be so cool. Like, just watch the movie and come up with shit as you're. Is that kind of how that would work? I guess. It's like
I'm
as
assuming.
It's going?
Yeah.
Gotta figure it out. Shoot this guy a movie, motherfuckers. So when you first started working on this project, what was the difference between like when you originally started writing stuff for it to now, like as far as gear and things like that go? Did that evolve over time? Were you just doing it on a computer at one time and now you're doing it full fledged, or what?
No, not really. It's pretty much the same setup
Yeah.
that I started with that I have now. I kind of I've gotten more updated version of. I use the program Reason for creating all my music, and it's just having the keyboard and computer and my head. So
Yeah.
that's pretty much it.
Got it. Well, how do you like as far as live shows go? What do you do as far as like what's your kind of performance type deal? Like you have the mask, so fuck it. Let's talk about that for a second. What's
Okay.
what's the idea behind the anonymity?
The mask. It's just kind of I wanted it to just be based solely about the music, but also have a little bit of theatricality.
Yeah.
Being that it's very horror movie influenced, kind of bringing some of that to the stage. So it's not just some guy up there.
That makes sense.
So yeah, I go for just coming out and kind of presenting my music as aggressive as I can be with playing a keyboard, but yeah. Yeah, and I mean, I think one of the things that really stands out with my shows that I think may turn some of the synthwave people off. I don't know. I mean, a lot of my songs have like slower, creepy interludes, things like that. So it's not just the constant same pace throughout the entire show. And I think part of that might come from my love of old metal and things like that too, like the Iron Maiden, Metallica kind of thing. There's always kind of an ebb and flow in the music, so it's not just the same thing.
Especially black
again.
metal. We were talking about that earlier. That's all about that fucking like atmosphere. There's a bunch of it bunch of that in there. There's stuff behind the music almost. It creates a effervescent kind of thing.
Yeah, and that's kind of one of the things that I wanted to do with this project. So yeah, there are times in my show where things kind of slow down, but I think it helps bring those harder moments, the heavier moments. It kind of makes them jolt people a little bit more.
It's a slow burn. That's important. I mean, people forget that about like the movie Halloween, for instance. Every year, like doesn't fail. Like people will watch that movie and then they're just like, by like the 35-minute mark, they're like making some food, or they're like, because like that, like a lot of that stuff, a lot of the best stuff like that, it has to grow and build. And Eli Roth understood that really well. That's like Hostel is the same exact way. That movie, not shit doesn't happen until the 45-minute mark.
Yeah.
But I think that's smart. I think that it shows a dedication to what you're actually making. What are some of your favorite like horror soundtracks?
Some of my favorites. I mean, of course, Halloween is like everyone's pick, but as far as Carpenter is concerned, like as far as Carpenter is concerned, I mean, I really like his work on The Fog. That was one of his soundtracks that I really liked a lot. Beyond that, Goblin's soundtrack to Suspiria was another favorite of mine, and I actually just saw Claudio Simonetti's Goblin. It was just here a couple weeks ago.
Yeah, Tom York did this,
and they did the live score to Suspiria, which was pretty rad. It was cool to see that.
What was did you see the new version?
I've not seen the new version.
Okay, got it.
No, I've not. I'm kind of hesitant to see that.
Yeah, we'll see what happens.
The original was a pretty fantastic movie. I don't know what they could do to really improve on it.
Yeah, when it comes to remaking a classic like that, sometimes I find that it's best to look at it as like, here's another interpretation, as opposed to here's our better version of it, I guess. Like, which might be a little dishonest, but it makes it easier to enjoy sometimes.
Yeah,
from that perspective.
I think it's just I'm so hesitant because I love that movie, the original, the soundtrack, and when they said they were remaking it, I was like, that doesn't make a whole lot of sense. But then they started announcing the cast and what's his face? The dude from Radiohead. Tom York, yeah. He did the soundtrack on it. I was like, well, he might be able to come up with some cool sounds. And I listened to it, and he did come up with some cool sounds, but it doesn't match the intensity of that original Goblin score for me. And I don't know.
Every once in a while, a remake will make its way to, I feel like, sometimes surpassing the original in horror movies. And it's rare, but it does happen. Like, I feel like the 2009 version of I Spit on Your Grave is 1,000 times better than the original.
I don't know if I'd necessarily say better, but I was pleasantly surprised by that one.
Yeah.
I thought they did a really good job with that one. Of all the remakes, I thought that one was pretty decent. I thought the remake of Maniac,
oh my fucking
the one with
God,
Elijah Wood,
yes.
I thought they did a good job with that. I mean, I wouldn't say it's better than the original, but the first person point of view,
it was so nauseating in the best way.
Yeah, I thought they did a pretty cool job with that too.
Dude, that scene, like him doing all of that stuff from first person, like that, because that's such a kooky idea. Like, let's do an entire movie first person. But it really, I feel like they had enough artistic vision to really make that work, as opposed to like Doom or something like that.
Yeah.
Like, they really made it. And like when he's like, oh fuck, he's like up in that apartment with the big windows, and he's like scalping that girl, and you see it all. That like fucked me up. Like, and I'm pretty desensitized to this point.
Yeah, the shots they had in that first person view really kind of brought out
the headaches,
insanity. Yeah. It was cool. And then that was another one I really liked the soundtrack on that one too. Yeah, I thought they did a good job with that.
I always forget the guy's name that did that.
Rob,
yeah. Yeah, that soundtrack was super good. Yeah. I like that. I think one of the, not overlooked, but everyone talks about like Halloween is a popular one people talk about, obviously, and people talk about Suspiria and people talk about stuff like that, but I feel like the Day of the Dead soundtrack is another one that doesn't get enough attention.
Day of the Dead soundtrack was cool. It had it was a little more subtle, I think, but it hits those synth notes right at the perfect times. And
didn't that movie just get remade, or it's being remade, or something like that?
It's been remade a couple of times.
I know I know it was remade once, but I'm pretty sure they did it again.
There was a new one. It was Day of the Dead. It has like some subtitle. Yeah. I can't remember what it was.
I haven't seen the new Texas Chainsaw yet, but I really want to. The new Leatherface movie.
I didn't watch it. The original is my favorite movie of all time.
Really,
absolute favorite movie. And the remake, really, I didn't like at all.
Really?
Yeah.
See, I liked a lot of what Platinum Dunes did.
I liked the prequel to the remake, Texas Chainsaw,
The New Beginning.
The beginning, yeah. I thought they did pretty well with that. What I really didn't like was that they showed Leatherface's face in that remake. I didn't like that.
Oh yeah,
I did not like that.
See, I feel like when it comes to the like, love it or hate it with everything that Platinum Dunes. For those who don't know, Platinum Dunes is responsible for the insane influx of remakes that occurred in the mid to late 2000s. That really brought back the R-rated horror stuff in the mainstream, and I like that. Like I feel like that Texas Chainsaw remake, that was like 2003.
Yep.
And like you weren't seeing shit like that at a giant cinema in 2003. Like,
yeah, no, I mean,
she fucking like pulls the gun out of her pussy and blows her brains out. Like,
yeah.
Holy shit.
Yeah, like the violence and everything in that, I liked it. The only things I didn't like I said, showing his face, because I like the fact that throughout the original, you don't see his face. It's like a shroud of mystery. You don't know his origin. Why is he wearing a woman's face? Why is he doing
which is overlooked
these things? Yeah,
people overlook the shit out of that in the original.
And seeing, knowing the, like Ed Gein and the influence from that, but them not really expanding on that, I think, is part of the great mystery of the character of Leatherface.
Same thing with Michael Myers.
Yeah, like the less you know, to me, the better.
Totally.
And that's why I had a problem with them showing his face. And then just when she's able to cut his whole arm off with a meat cleaver at the end, I thought was a little silly.
I think I forgot about that.
Yeah.
But no, I mean, like, they're like, yeah, I agree. I guess, because Eli Roth, he credits himself as bringing back R-rated horror movies into the mainstream, which I think is somewhat true, because Cabin Fever was like, that was like 2001 or so, 2001.
Yeah.
And after that, we did see, because what he says is, he's like, after Cabin Fever, people understood that R-rated horror movies could be profitable again. Because before that, it was all like, I Know You Did Last Summer and all the 90s kind of like, or The Ring and stuff like that. But after that, after those gates were blown open, like Platinum Dunes, which is run by Michael Bay, which is really interesting.
Yeah.
They did some cool stuff. I thought, like, I liked the Texas Chainsaw remake, but at the same time, when that remake came out, I was a kid, so like I knew that it was a remake, but that was one of the first examples of like gnarly violence that I had seen, so it left an impression on me. But I also think that the 2009 Friday the 13th was actually pretty fucking good.
I don't know. I don't think it was a bad movie. That movie got a lot of hate from, a lot of the, I don't know, classic Friday the 13th fans. I didn't think it was that bad. I really didn't. I mean, as far as like a modern twist on it.
And it wasn't it was safe as fuck. It wasn't a remake.
Yeah, it was real innocuous. It was real just... Big guy with a hockey mask on killing kids. I mean, it's...
And they brought back like they brought back the sleeping bag, and they kind of did some of the old school stuff with it.
Yeah, I mean, it was... I don't think it was terrible. I don't think it was groundbreaking. It was fun to watch a big guy kill people.
But they shit the bed on that Nightmare on Elm Street remake. Hard.
Yeah, and they even got a decent actor, Jackie Earle Haley. He's a great actor. I don't know what happened with that.
I think what they did there was, I felt like they were remaking it too closely. Like with, for instance, like with Texas Chainsaw, it was a remake, but they didn't try to recreate a lot of the classic moments. They like, it's not like, I don't remember I don't think this happened, but like for instance, they didn't have like the famous scene where he comes out and he grabs her when the door opens and pulls her back in and shuts the thing. Like that was just I don't think, right? That wasn't in the remake.
Well, they had like the door shutting they did have, but it wasn't the same. There was no meat hook and there was none of that.
But like in the Nightmare on Elm Street remake, they had the hand coming out of the bathtub and the body bag being drugged through. They tried to redo they tried to make it too close.
Yeah.
And it's like, I understood the sentiment. Wes Craven said that he wanted the movie to be like serious again. He wanted that character to be menacing again. But I don't know. The intent was there. It was too close.
Yeah, it didn't do anything for me.
Yeah, it was a bummer. The gore was great and whatever, but I mean, it's not that ward to do. Where are you on practical effects versus CG? This is a debate I have all the time.
I like practical effects. Obviously, you know, I'm a big Savini fan and Stan Winston and all that.
Who did the effects on American Werewolf in London?
That was that Stan Winston?
I think it was Winston.
Yeah, it was
I know
Winston.
it wasn't Savini. I think it was Winston.
Yeah, it was Winston who did that. That transformation's phenomenal.
I just watched it the other day.
Yeah.
It's gross.
Yeah,
Like, it
that
grosses me
transformation
out
was
to this
awesome.
day.
And yeah, I mean, I obviously like that, but sometimes the CGI is okay, and I can understand in the long run it's a little bit easier for directors. But there's
Cheap.
times where the blood splatters look kind of silly.
Walking Dead.
Yeah.
Walking Dead is like I liked the first like 5 or so seasons of The Walking Dead, but the one thing that always got me was the blood. They would do all these practical effects on the makeup, and you could tell that there were people on that show who were Savini and Winston worshippers, and they wanted to do it. But at the same time, they had Final Cut Pro. I've used Final Cut Pro. I know what that blood looks like.
Yeah.
Like, it's literally the same shit. I couldn't believe it.
Yeah. They actually had a K&B on that. Kurtzman Nicotero Burger doing the practical effects on there.
Yeah.
And
Nicotero's great.
Yeah, they're all great makeup artists, but yeah, they did the same thing. CGI
understand.
blood. It looks silly.
It looks super silly, and I know that I wouldn't mind it as much if I didn't know how they were doing it. It's like one of those things, like, once you see how the sausage is made, you don't want to eat it. And like, that was the thing. I was like, I know exactly what program that is, and I should not notice that on a multi-fucking-million-dollar TV show.
Yeah.
Have you watched that show? Do you watch that show at all?
I watched. It's kind of a funny thing. I watched part of the first season, and I kind of just petered out.
Yeah.
I had read the comic book, actually, and it's a funny story. I actually, when the comic book first came out, I was working at KB Toys. I was back in
KB Toys.
Yeah, that was back in like 01, 02, whatever. And you know, I was a comic book nerd, and I would go to the comic book shop every Wednesday for new comics, and that one came out, and I picked up the first issue of it. I was like, this looks cool. I like zombies. Let me check this out. And I lost my job at KB Toys like the week after, so I wasn't able to get comics for a while after that. So I had the very first issue of The Walking Dead.
Oh, shit.
And it was the first print and everything like that. But I had gotten into the comic book later once I, got a new job and started buying comics again. I really liked the comic book. TV show, I don't know. It seemed like they tried to make it a little too dramatic for me.
Oh, yeah. It was very dramatic.
And I don't know. I just kind of stopped watching. People have told me to check out some of the other seasons because it kind of shies away at some points, and then they said at other points it gets a little too much. So,
the great parts are great, but the bad parts are bad and long. Like, they drag shit out where I'm just like, I'm so done with this character. I'm so done with this part of the story. Please just move on. Are you still into comics?
Some, not like I used to be.
When did you kind of drop off?
Honestly, I mean, after the Secret War in Marvel, I was always a big Marvel fan.
Okay, yeah. See, I was never really big I was never huge into the big two.
Yeah.
I'm an Image guy, and Image and Avatar, was Avatar doing shit when you were working in comics?
Avatar, it was just a little bit. Yeah.
When they got crossed, they blew the fuck up.
Oh, yeah.
I love those. Garth Ennis is my shit.
Yeah, Garth Ennis was great. Yeah, Image Comics was big for me. Todd McFarlane's my favorite artist, writer of all time.
Great.
So, yeah, Image Comics was another big one for me when I was growing up.
Image still to this day, like they have great stories coming out of there still. Image like really got like I want to see more movies on some of the stuff that they've done.
Yeah.
For sure. Like, why isn't there a Saga movie? How has that never happened?
Yeah.
What the fuck?
I don't think big movie studios would be able to or want to take a chance on something like that.
They took a chance on Guardians of the Galaxy.
Yeah, but
no one.
I mean, yeah, that's true. I got to give you that. Yeah, when I first heard they were making a Guardians of the Galaxy movie, I was like, nobody's going to watch that. Nobody is going to watch that because I was like, in my head when they first announced that, I was like, there's going to be like a big tense dramatic scene and they're going to be showing close-ups of the Guardian's face and there's just going to be a close-up of a raccoon. I was like, nobody's going to take that seriously. And
yeah. But maybe
they approached it the right way.
Maybe that can work because like that in Ant-Man, maybe those, I feel like there's two things that make those work. One, they're Marvel, obviously. Like Marvel's got some amazing people working with them. But the other thing that I think that makes them work is that no one took them seriously beforehand. So they were able to make it funny and goofy and kind of and like self-effacing in that way. Yeah. Whereas Saga is dramatic and people take it seriously and it's like really people. It's so loved that you can't like just make it goofy.
But it's loved by a certain section of people, like the standard movie-going audience. I don't know if they'd be. I don't know if they'd understand it or get it or even want to try. Yeah. So I think that's why. Image
has a bunch of those books. Like East of Eden's another one that's like. That's more recent of the last couple of years, I think. But yeah, I used to like basically live at Greg's Comics. Yeah. Greg's, which is down here. I don't know if you. I guess you're from over different. Yeah, around here, that's like the spot.
Yeah, over by me, we went to Atomic Comics or All About Books and Comics, and that
got it. Yeah. So KB sold comics?
No, we didn't. There was an Atomic Comics just outside the mall that I worked at.
Oh shit!
So that's where I went.
Got it. Very cool. Very cool. So you released 2 things this year. Yeah?
Yeah, two. Well, two EPs, and then I've done a couple singles that have been released on like compilations and stuff.
Got it. Do you have like the year's coming to a close? So do you have any cool plans for next year?
Yeah, my big plan, and it's funny the recent EP Neon Maniac was actually when I dropped my very first EP back in 2016. I had this huge idea in my head that I was going to follow it up with a full-length album and all that. And I had great ideas behind it, but I instead decided to focus more on the production end of it rather than, songwriting. I can write songs, that's fine. But the production end of it, being that it's something pretty new for me, that just kind of took over. So the full-length album never happened.
Okay.
So though the couple songs that are on that new EP were songs that I had written for that ill-fated full-length album. But since I wrote those songs, my style's changed quite a bit into a darker thing, so I just decided to release that. But coming up here 2019, I'm gonna finally do the full-length album.
Hell yeah.
Started writing some things, and I've got some good concepts in my head, so I'm excited to start working on that.
What's your writing process like? How do you sit down and work on something?
It mostly comes out of my head. I get these things going on in my head. I just kind of start humming them to myself.
Okay.
If I'm perfectly honest, like I'll be walking around work and I'll just kind of come up with something and I'll hum it in my head over and over again, so it just kind of ingrains itself. And then when I get home, I'll jump on my computer or I'll grab a guitar or the bass or something like that and just kind of start fiddling around with it and, get the parts in my head and then build kind of rough ideas and just kind of go from there.
So when you're talking about the about kind of like how your style has evolved, where do you think it's kind of evolving to? What are you incorporating?
It's funny, earlier this year, I'm in quite a few like synthwave and retrowave groups and stuff on Facebook, and I saw somebody write on there that they thought that the majority of like dark synth artists aren't actually that dark. They just kind of write songs in a minor key and
low notes
release it. Yeah. And I thought about that, and I think that guy kind of had a point. So I kind of took that as a personal challenge.
Yeah.
And so the Mirror, the collection of new songs that I had released this year, took a much darker turn. And it's kind of the new songs that I have in mind are kind of expanding on that a bit more. And I want to try to tackle a little bit more like serious subject matter. But being that my music is mostly instrumental, it's trying to convey some of those feelings through like an oral sensibility, just all music. So trying to convey feelings with the notes I'm hitting or, whatever the case may be. So I've got some pretty heavy subject matter that I want to delve into, but, being that it's instrumental, getting that point across, there's going to be real aggressive parts. There's going to be a bit more, I don't know, forlorn, classical elements in it too. I think
that's so cool. I've always kind of wanted to do that, like have a project where like, I want to paint pictures with music. Almost the first, like I got really into Swans for a little while, and like when I first heard Filth, I was like, oh shit, this you can do that, like you can do holy, because because by the time I was like really getting into music and stuff, like punk had already long, been here. All the kind of stuff that makes people go, oh wow, you can do that. Like that's already been done. I just didn't know about it. So, I think I discovered Swans when I was like 21 or something like that, and I had not really heard music like I had kind of heard music like that, but I hadn't actually really felt it and given it my all. So I was at the record store one day and I saw saw Filth with the fucking teeth on it, and I just bought it. I was just like, I've heard good things about this band. I've heard good things about specifically like this era. I'm a big Henry Rollins fan, and Henry's talked before about like Cop, the album that they did before that.
Yeah.
And I was like, fuck it, I'm just gonna buy it. It was only like $19, something like that for a new vinyl. Let's do it. Took it home, smoked a bunch of weed, put my headphones on, and just got terrified for an hour. And that was the first time I was like, fuck, this guy, like, yeah, there's lyrics, but this guy is painting you something, putting you somewhere with just this hammerous sound. And that's when I just kind of discovered, like, fuck, you can really transport someone with just the music itself and pervade like an actual idea.
Yeah, and that's really what I'm looking to do with this full length. There's, in the synthwave scene, there's a lot of, palm trees and setting suns and things like that.
A lot of palm trees.
But, I haven't really seen any artists that tackle heavier topics like depression, suicide, death, murder, in a more serious capacity. And
very campy usually.
Yeah. And I'm trying to look at influences outside of the typical synth scene. So things like black metal, that's really been kind of, I've been listening to a lot of that recently, as well as things like Nick Cave,
dude,
Leonard Cohen, things like that, to get some like different sounds, different things like that.
Nick Cave's a great one to pull from.
Yeah. And there's different disparate influences I kind of want to bring into this to make it so it's not just the same synth thing.
That's awesome.
Everybody's heard.
Yeah, that early Nick Cave shit's scary.
Yeah.
As hell. Like the Firstborn is Dead or whatever that record. Oh my god, it's so good.
Yeah.
He's kind of impenetrable for a lot of people. Even I had a really hard time getting into him for quite a while. Aside from the obvious singles that are just like catchy or whatever, like Red Right Hand and whatever. But getting into the Birthday Party was big. Like, fuck yeah,
Birthday Party was great. It's just pretty much everything he's done. Even like there was that Western movie he did the soundtrack for.
Was that for when he was with Grinder Man?
Yeah, and God, the sounds that he came up with that were, it took some like the Ennio Morricone spaghetti Western kind of soundtrack stuff, but then he gave it his own Nick Cave twist, and it was really cool. It was really cool.
That's super sick. Do you have any like shows coming up in the next like month or so?
No, I don't have anything specifically planned. There's a couple that I'm waiting to hear back on, hoping, but for the most part, I'm going to be busy at work for the next month. But I think 2019, I want to get out more, start playing different places. I got the opportunity to play in California a couple times this year, and I played at a big festival, synth festival in Rhode Island.
Oh shit!
Back in August, which was really cool. But I want to get out other parts of the country and play as well.
I feel like Colorado would be pretty sick. I heard that Boulder has a really big electronic music scene.
There's some out there. There was a artist that he played on the festival I played in California, L.A. Arson.
Okay.
He does, his is kind of like a mix of like dark synth and EBM.
What's EBM?
And stuff. It's electronic body music.
Okay.
It's kind of like an offshoot of almost like industrial type stuff. But they have like live guitar and bass and stuff in their music, and it's a little bit heavier, a little bit grittier.
Very cool.
But
did you ever listen to The Body?
The Body? No.
Bro, I'm going to fuck you up with The Body. I'll send it to you. I'll send it to you. I feel like that's another one. It's kind of hard to define, but they're really prolific and they put out so much music. But it's, I don't know how I would describe it. It's not quite industrial. It's just nightmarish and aggressive and textured and visceral. Very like, it's wild. A lot of just kind of like banging. Like some of their songs just kind of have like the kind of like scary, weird, atmospheric banging, and then someone just like screaming for their life in the background, and just kind of crazy shit. I'm surprised. Yeah, I'll have to send that. I'll send you a link to that. That's some pretty good stuff.
Yeah, I'll check that.
Well, dude, thank you so much for coming on and hanging out with us.
Thank you very much for having me.
Yeah, I was blown away. I listened to both of them back to back.
Thank you.
Both The Mirror,
The Mirror,
The Mirror, and Neon.
Neon Maniac.
Neon Maniac. Sorry,
that's the one.
Yeah, great stuff. Really, I can't wait to keep. I'm so happy that this is the fastest that an interview has ever happened. Where I was like, I discovered you last week, and I was like, this is happening right now. We're getting him in. I need to talk to this dude. So hell yeah, man. So I'm looking forward to everything you got in the future. Everybody check out Neon Maniac, Neuron Spectre, Spotify, Bandcamp, all that kind of shit. Apple Music,
Apple Music, yep, iTunes,
all over the place.
Find it all in there.
Do you have vinyl?
I do not have vinyl yet. The only 80s cool kid stuff I got some cassettes of The Mirror made. So
nice. Yeah. That's very cool. Get on it, everybody. Thank you so much for listening. And you know what's up. You know where to find all my stuff. And I got, motherfucker, I have some really, really cool guests to end out the rest of the year. So thanks for staying with me. Keep staying with me. Yes, and you know what's up. Stay tuned after this for some messages and shout outs and whatnot. And I'll see you guys next week. Get stoked. Aw, shit, look at that. The episode's over, man. We're done. Episode is finished. Luckily, though, there are plenty of other older episodes hanging around the internet anywhere you'd like to find podcasts. iTunes, podcast apps like Stitcher or Podcast Addict for either the iPhone or the Android. My official Podbean website. I'm fucking everywhere, man. I'm building an empire. Let's take over the fucking world. Anyway, if you've made it this far, I truly appreciate you and encourage you to please reach out and say hello. I'm serious about this, guys. I really want to connect with my listeners. So whether you want to come on the show or not, drop me a line. Hit me an email at gettingstokedpodcast@gmail.com, or you can hit me up on social media, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. I think that's it, man. Thank you guys so much for listening. It really, I know I harp on it so much, but it really, truly means everything. So thank you. Get stoked.